Hi, mine's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the comments from Jacob Rees-Mogg and other assorted Brexiteers who are claiming that the Privileges Committee investigation is really all about Brexit. In an objective sense, of course, it's not. However, there is a sense which, for Brexit supporters, it sort of is. Polling data on public attitudes towards this are very revealing indeed. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. Just for the video, another quick reminder, I shall be on Max and Alex's Sunday Roast tomorrow now. Because I think this is Saturday. It's not really Saturday, but this video is coming out on Saturday. So I'll put a link to the channel in the description below. But of course, it won't pop up until Sunday itself. But anyway, if we look at the different types of Brexit supporter, whether in politics and the media, and what do you notice around the Privileges Committee? Almost universal condemnation of the Privileges Committee inquiry as a witch hunt or a kangaroo court, and a claim that it's Remainers who are responsible. This is despite the fact not one single MP of the entire Parliament, a majority of whom voted us out of the EU, which is why we're out of the EU, including Jacob Rees-Mogg and Nadine Dorries, objecting in the slightest to the inquiry taking place. Not one, when the Speaker called if there were any objections to the inquiry, because there's a vote, are there any objections? Not a peep from anyone, which is why there was no vote. It passed. But they're now claiming that it's all a Remainer plot. But there's a sense in which I think this is about Brexit. Not a Remainer plot, of course, but a Brexit one. First of all, let's look at the polling on this, because it's incredibly interesting. YouGov polled people's views about whether or not Boris Johnson deliberately misled Parliament this week. Way more people believe he lied than didn't. In fact, there's a clip of Question Time from Thursday night, is it? Flying around, where the audience is, and the host says that the audience is designed to match the voting behaviour of the previous general election. So in other words, I suppose that means 43% of the audience voted for Boris Johnson's Conservatives. And so therefore, and also it has a majority of Brexit voters. They always do. Oh yeah, they based the audience on a poll that took place 8 years ago, because that makes sense. But anyway, the host asked of the audience, hands up if you believe Boris Johnson told the truth in the hearing this week. Not one single hand went up, not one. But back to the more robust poll from YouGov than just a television audience. So break it down into different types of voters. Let's split the country up. Break it down by which of the three main British parties they voted for in 2019, Labour, Conservatives, Lib Dems. And you look at it and you go, okay, there's a higher proportion of Labour and Lib Dem voters believed he lied than Conservative voters. But there's still more Conservative voters believe he lied than didn't. So party politics, beyond a bit of tribal thinking leeching in there, it's not splitting the country on this issue, because the voters of all three of those parties all believed, on balance, that Boris Johnson lied to Parliament and lied in the hearing. So then split it up by region and you see the same thing. There is, again, some regional variation, but throughout Britain, significantly, in fact, way more people think Johnson misled Parliament than not. Split it by age, same thing. Gender, same thing. Social class, same thing. No matter how you try and split the population up, not a single demographic has more people believing he told the truth than not. They all think he lied. Until you look at the final way of splitting the population up by that Brexit vote in 2016. The fact that pollsters still split polling samples into Leave and Remain is interesting in itself. It is an indication that 8 years after the votes and 3 years after leaving the EU, it is still impacting people's perception of politics. And that's why pollsters find out what split there is between Remain and Leave of their sample. The vast majority of Remain voters think Boris Johnson lied. Very small number thinking he didn't. But there are double the number of Leave voters who think he was honest compared to those who think he lied. So now finally we have, after splitting it up by party votes, by gender, social grade, age, whatever, however you try and split it up, region, finally we can split the country up in a way that produces one demographic where most of them think Boris Johnson's honest. And it's those who voted to leave. Leave voters are on Johnson's side. It's the only demographic where more of them are on Johnson's side than against on this matter. No other grouping believes Johnson, not even Conservative voters. But Leave voters do, or at least a majority of them. It is therefore no surprise that almost every pro-Brexit commentator is backing Johnson. He's their talisman. They believe, rightly or wrongly, that Brexit collapses without him. I'll remind you that Andrew Adonis, who is of course a big Rejoin supporter, has said that when Boris Johnson falls, Brexit will fall. And it seems some Brexiteers believe this as well. And they must save him at all costs. See, they look at the Tories since Rishi Sunak took over. Someone who actively campaigned for Brexit, didn't have to. He didn't write 2 articles, one for and against. He just campaigned for Brexit. But they see in him someone who is taking their Brexit away. Quite what their Brexit is down to speculation. We've left the EU, we've left the customs union, we've left the single market. They still want more. They have to both at the same time claim that Boris Johnson got Brexit done, but also that there's still much more to do. But whatever the more to do is, it's clearly not helped by Rishi Sunak trying to cooperate with the EU on pragmatic solutions to common areas of interest. But why do they throw their weight behind Boris Johnson? If they don't like Sunak's approach, why not find a new champion? Why expend so much energy on trying to resurrect the bloated political corpse that is Boris Johnson's career? Isn't there someone else? Why Boris Johnson? Because Boris Johnson is Brexit. He didn't start the campaign to leave the EU. He didn't even personally believe in it. He only joined the Leave groups at the last moment when the referendum was already in the bag and the date for the vote was set. He was a late convert, but he was also the only one crazy enough to actually go ahead with it. No one else could really have achieved it. Anyone who could become Prime Minister would have either been incapable of winning the election needed for the majority to drive it through without that confirmatory referendum. Remember, the Tories did not have a majority wanting to vote to leave the EU at all. Or they'd have had to understand the consequences of a hard Brexit and so not wanted to actually go ahead with it. Brexiteers needed someone who could convince others that they should be allowed to drive the bus, but also someone who was willing to drive that bus over the cliff. Boris Johnson had that unique mix of electability and batshit crazy. That's why they need him to survive. He stepped down and already the Tories have reversed their attitude to the EU. Yes, they're still sticking by Brexit. Yes, all they've really done is clear up a little bit of their Brexit mess. But they're trapped now with it. But behind the scenes, they are trying to manoeuvre themselves into more pragmatic policies. The Northern Ireland Protocol has been recommitted to, ending the need for the Northern Ireland Protocol Bill. The retained EU law bill will be next. Hardline Brexiteers are convinced that without Johnson, their Brexit disappears. They know crazy isn't enough. Liz Truss proved that. They need crazy and electable. Problem is, Johnson's not electable either. But they can't allow themselves to believe that, to confront that fact, because that would be to give up entirely when they thought they were so close to whatever it is they think they wanted. It's also a grim reflection on the views of their own chances. Like, surely the sensible thing to do would be to identify that Boris Johnson is done for, finished. He's not coming back. So find someone else to get behind. Someone who could be like Boris Johnson, only someone who hasn't shit the bed with the public. But there isn't anyone, is there? Look at the 22 Tory MPs who voted against Sunak's bit of Brexit pragmatism. 21 if you remove Boris Johnson himself, of course. 21 Tory MPs, all committed to an even harder Brexit than the one we have now. Surely they can just get behind someone from that group. Surely amongst that 21 big names in the Tory party, there must be someone who can step up. But no, they're all useless. And they all know they're all useless because none of them are even attempting to get some. No one's saying, Jacob, you be our champion, mate. No one's saying that. None of them could challenge Sunak, or at least that's what they believe, because they're not trying to. I mean, get rid of Liz Truss as well, because even the Tories aren't mad enough to bring her back. That's still 20 Tory MPs and some big names in there who share this vision of a Brexit which delivers 24/7 confrontation with the EU. And this is their problem. If even they do not think that anyone amongst that 20-strong clique is a credible leader, what chance do they have? How can they get behind Mark Francois or John Redwood, Jacob Rees-Mogg or Andrea Jenkins? Not an ounce of charm among them. The sort of people who could only ever win a really safe Tory seat. So they have to get behind Johnson. Nobody else. But if Johnson's recalled from Parliament for lying to MPs, they know he is very unlikely to win the by-election, even if he stands. Jacob Rees-Mogg says, of course he'll win his by-election. I would like to put that to the test. So they have to throw everything at putting pressure on the committee to issuing a lenient punishment. And if that doesn't work, putting pressure on Tory MPs to reject it as a witch hunt. If Johnson goes, whatever their end game for Brexit was, is dead and buried. So for them, this Privileges Committee investigation is all about Brexit. Not because it's a Remainer plot, not because it has anything to do with Brexit, but because their Brexit rides on Boris Johnson retaining his seat in Parliament to keep this slim chance alive that he could displace Rishi Sunak and become Prime Minister again and deliver unto them their sunlit plans. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships. And until next time, I'll see you later.